After all the madness that has taken place in public schools across the entire country, we see now a 10% increase in people interested in school choice, which is wild. You think everyone would want school choice at this point after what happened these last 2 years. But the White House, in their latest budget proposal, is actually cutting funding, not to regular traditional public schools, but specifically to charter schools, which is a form of school choice. A charter school, if you're not familiar, is a public school, meaning it's free for the kids and for the parents, but it's a little bit separate from the traditional model. And the biggest difference is no teachers' unions. Our next guest is the CEO, president of the Pennsylvania Coalition of Public Charter Schools, Lenny McAllister. Lenny, great to talk to you again, brother.
Mike, thanks for having me on, kind sir. How are you doing today?
Glad I'm doing really good. Except I hate to hear this about our schools. It's outrageous, and it's one of the worst things going on in our country, and it's amazing that we're still putting up with it. Tell us about this bill here and cutting money from charter schools.
Well, there's two things to it, Mike. Number one, actually, it's three things. Number one, the Biden administration is asked for basically $440 million, which is below the amount that charter school advocates, including the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools and the Pennsylvania Coalition of Public Charter Schools, identified that would be needed nationally, which would be roughly $500 million, considering the spike in school choice support that we have seen over the last 15 months. Coupled to that, the fact that the Democrats that are running the Appropriations Committee are trying to go even further down than that. And on top of that, there's language in the bill that basically says that if a charter school uses any money with a for-profit organization, they're at risk of losing their money. Now, not a for-profit charter management organization, a for-profit organization or business. For example, if a charter school, as the language is written right now, would hire a janitorial service that is a business that is for-profit, they would risk losing their federal funding. Now, at a time where the charter segment, the support for it has gone up, a segment that disproportionately supports the overlooked and underprivileged American student, they're looking to cut funding based on language right now if an organization partners with any type of for-profit organization, including lunch services and janitorial services when it comes to their federal funding. It's egregious.
This is so blatant union goonery, thuggery, right? That's all that is.
It's a combination of both. I mean, obviously, there's a pro-union slant in this White House that we have not heard in quite some time when it comes to public education. But as well, this is the epitome of bureaucracy in Washington, D.C., a.k.a. the swamp. When you start looking at how the bill was written, even Democrats are looking at this and kind of rolling their eyes and saying, okay, that's not quite what we meant. But once again, it's what's on paper right now. So if you're not going through the amendment process, you're not calling your legislators in Washington, D.C. and saying this has to be changed, federal funding for kids that are at risk of learning loss this upcoming school year, they may lose their federal funding because their charter school decides to get a janitorial service that wants to make a $50,000 profit over the course of 12 months.
Yeah, maybe I'm too cynical, Lenny. I find this much more purposeful. I find this to be parents leaving the traditional public schools into the charter schools. The unions don't like it because they lose money. So we got to make life as oppressive as possible for the charter schools. We're not going to give them any more, even though more people want it. And we're not going to let them provide better services because those services may be for profit. So we're going to make charter schools worse to drive kids back into the traditional public schools so the unions get more money. Am I too cynical?
No, you're not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's all because of bureaucracy and being sloppy, but there's a portion of that there. But the bigger angst is going to be the public education system was shown to be wanting over these past 15 months. The teacher unions kept schools in places such as Philadelphia, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, closed a lot longer than charter schools and private schools. So now that schools are going to start opening back up maybe in September, when the funding starts flowing once again, the pushback is going to go through the roof from the pro-union and pro-education establishment segment of public education. Therefore, it's now more than ever, parents have to get involved, pro-school choice advocates have to get involved and say, listen, we learned from this once-in-a-lifetime event that we need choice for all families, regardless of your income, if we're going to bring America back when it comes to economics, when it comes to employment, and when it comes to education.
Wow, that was deep and insightful. I want more of that. Like, subscribe, get more.